Hi, this is Jodi Salvo. Welcome to the Tuscarawas County Anti-Drug Coalition's podcast. Today on our show, I'm joined with Natalie Bollon, the Executive Director of the Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board, or better known as the ADAMHS Board of Tuscarawas County. Tim Wicks, Supervising Counselor at Personal and Family Counseling Services, and Miles Riley, Director of Marketing at Dover Community Mental Health Services, Healthcare. Our guests will be discussing mental health and substance use issues that might have emerged or been exacerbated during COVID-19. Our guests from the behavioral health field are all committed to helping persons understand the importance of addressing mental health issues and educating the community on the resources and treatment services available in our county. I'm confident that after our time together today, we will all gain a greater understanding of the impact that COVID-19 might be having on persons' mental health. We learn how we can better support others, ideas on how to cope with stressors that we might be facing, and learn about resources and services available in Tuscarawas County. So first, welcome, guys. I'm so glad you're here today. I'm going to just ask, let's start with who you are, a little bit about you, and what do you do in the community?
So I'm Natalie Bollon, and as Jodi said, I'm the director at the Alcohol, Drug, Mental Health Board. The ADAMHS Board is similar to like a Board of Developmental Disability, and their population is working with individuals with a developmental disability. The ADAMHS Board is a division of county government that our charge is to make sure we have a system of care in Tuscarawas and Carroll counties that meets the mental health and addiction needs of all of our residents from youth to adults.
Great. And Miles.
Yeah, Miles Riley with Community Mental Health Care and Community Family Health Center, providing behavioral health, outpatient behavioral health. We also have primary care and dental services available at the health center. Mostly serving the Medicaid population, but we do take Medicare. We have private insurance, and we have a sliding fee scale as well. That's just a short list of what we offer. There's a lot more that we do, but we can probably get into that a little bit later.
Absolutely. Thanks, Miles. And Tim.
Well, first and foremost, I'm a counselor at Personal and Family Counseling. I do see clients and talk to people about what's going on in their lives.
Sure.
And then I oversee the office-based department and consult with the other counselors. So I'm kind of a counselor to the counselors, supporting them and helping them through this difficult time as well. We see people from the ages of 2 up until, 99.
Sure. And you know what? I know we'll get into this later, but that being a counselor of counselors is probably just a very important position right now because, I think one of the conversations we're going to have in a future podcast is also with teachers. And you figure the weight of counselors providing services in this time, meaning they still might have their own children in the home and they're balancing their own issues in light of, trying to meet the needs out in the community. Same with teachers, they're teaching classrooms and yet they have their kiddos at home. And, there's just a lot that goes on with the present situation. So we appreciate the work y'all do because it really does make a difference in our community. So thank you again for being here. I want to first start by just asking, what are you seeing right now in the midst of this COVID situation in regards to mental health issues? And you know what? I'm going to take that back one step. Do you want to explain mental health issues? Because I still sometimes think, we throw out the word mental health issues, and I still think we're in a society where we're not as accepting as in the language of mental health as we are, say, in physical health. So anyone want to?
Yeah, I had a great opportunity to work with a class at Dover High School. Mrs. Dunlap invited me in to kind of judge a debate that they had about mental health. And the language that they were using was I was wiggling in my chair as I was listening to them because they were really categorizing mental health as higher level or more intense levels of mental health issues as schizophrenia and bipolar and things like that. We do see that obviously, but I think the majority of the cases and the majority of the people come to our seek our services are dealing more with depression, anxiety, grief, family counseling, and things like that. So I would say that that's the bigger bulk of what we see. Not saying that we don't see the other
Sure,
people, but I
sure.
think there's a misunderstanding of exactly what mental health is. It isn't always a diagnosis. Sometimes it's a situation that you're
Sure.
learning to cope with.
And I think that's such a good point, Jodi. I'm really glad that you brought that up because I think that relates a lot to the stigma in the community that we may see connected to mental health. Historically, media has done us no favors in portraying mental health. I was at a training a couple years back, and the presenter posted on the screen examples in TV shows and movies of what mental health looks like. And one of the examples that he posted was the movie from Patch Adams. And if you remember at the end of the movie, one of the most beloved characters gets attacked by a person with schizophrenia. And if you don't have the exposure that we have, then that kind of becomes what your scope is when you think about mental health. But I just want to echo what Miles said, that absolutely we have individuals with schizophrenia, with bipolar disorder, and they're managing it very well. But the majority of what we see, the majority of individuals that walk through the door of our treatment providers have lower level symptoms that everybody faces. It could be a depression. It could be an anxiety. It could be an adjustment to a life stressor. And I just, as an ADAMHS board director, I'm always really concerned that the stigma that we have out there prevents the people that really would benefit from treatment from coming in.
Okay. I think this is a great conversation just to get us started because is it fair enough? I'm sitting around with behavioral healthcare experts to say mental health crises are common to man and most likely we will all experience this at one point in our life.
Life is tough.
Yeah.
I mean, life can be a roller coaster. You have times that you thank God, for the wonderful day that you had. And then you have times where you think, how in the world am I going to get through this? And that's just life. And sometimes the support systems and the resources that we have around our personal lives are enough. And sometimes you just need a little bit more to get through it. And I think the other thing that I want to say is oftentimes when people come in for treatment, it's not years of treatment.
Sure.
It's a handful of sessions. And maybe Tim could even speak a little bit to that.
Absolutely. Sometimes there are times in life that we just need somebody that we need to be talking to, that we have things that we need to be working out, and that we need a safe place to do that. And we want to do that with a professional in a confidential setting. That's as straightforward as that sometimes.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Let's get into this whole COVID crisis situation that we're in right now, because definitely we are, I'm assuming, experiencing increased mental health issues in relation to this. Is that correct?
Yes, we're seeing it in the media, on the radio, on the television, and we're hearing it from people as well. People are drinking a little bit more as they're staying home. People are worried. They're thinking about what they're hearing and afraid of what's going to happen.
Sure.
And what we've seen locally is there was a bit of a decline right when the pandemic hit and people weren't engaging in services as quickly. But now what I'm understanding is we're seeing a little bit more of an uptick in people reaching out and using telehealth as a treatment service.
Can you explain telehealth a little bit?
We're adopting that. We're not turning anybody away who would show up at our office for an appointment. Just to make that clear at the beginning. But we've rescheduled just about everybody to either do telephone or video conferencing. We're seeing more people be comfortable with telephone rather than the video conferencing. I don't know if that's a learning curve. I don't know how that breaks down age-wise. I don't know if older population may have trouble with that. I know my 8-year-old nephew has no problem with interacting with his friends during this time, playing Fortnite and yelling at each other.
Sure.
But they just have a different exposure and a different upbringing with that technology. We're also doing primary care through that same process. So, and they're seeing the same thing. And it's a little bit of a struggle to get people on video conferencing, even though that's easier for them to help and diagnose issues. But we have seen not a huge decline. Obviously, we've seen our numbers go down a little bit as an agency, but I think that's was to be expected, but not nearly as much as we thought. So the telephone conferencing has helped a lot.
Cool.
It's normal to be nervous about starting counseling in a regular situation where you're going to an office and you're meeting somebody new and you're opening up. So I think the anxiety about, I'm going to meet this person on the video conference who I don't even know, and maybe tell some of my story too, can be an anxiety provoking thing. But we try to make it as easy as possible. If you're comfortable giving us your email, we can send you a link, and you just click on the link and we open up the program right then and there. And it's just like we're meeting in person.
Awesome. Okay. I was just kind of reflecting on the times we're experiencing right now. And I think what helps people function at a level that's, normal in our everyday life is usually having protective factors, meaning, you can go to the gym, you can go to your church, you can go to your AA group. Have you all thought about some of those losses and the implications that's having to persons in the community?
Well, for individuals, even that tend to function at a pretty healthy level, I
used the wrong word there.
I think that this isolation, this lack of being around other people, the lack of having a gym that you go to, or just hanging out with your support system and your friends is having a huge and significant impact. So for the people that were struggling with whether it was a biological mental health issue prior or just a life stressor prior, the fact that you add isolation on top of that, and you kind of have a perfect storm brewing.
Sure. What can people do in their own homes if they're feelings of anxiety or depression? Do you have any tips, takeaways?
I think it starts with some of the basics. Drinking water is one of the things. Proper hydration lowers anxiety. That gets cortisol levels down and helps us start to relax. Singing together is a good thing. I'm hearing about that, getting out the karaoke machine that we got at Christmas.
Should we all try that right now, guys?
And that's really a good thing, because singing puts you in the present moment.
Okay.
Anxiety lives in the past, anxiety lives in the future. But if we get here and now and we're doing something like that that's joyful together, that starts to lower anxiety levels. Plus, we're doing it together in a way that we connect.
Neat. Yeah. I just learned something right now.
I think also you have the increased screen time, this endless scrolling of Facebook and social media, and that's just not a healthy way. The mind can't take information in like that all the time. You're spending hours and hours on social media or your phone and scrolling. That's not that menial task that is so important to mental health. Sometimes folding laundry is healthier than scrolling through Facebook. It allows your brain to rest a little bit. There's a old, I think it's from the 30s, an essay called "The Importance of Loafing," and it's emphasizing this Chinese practice of taking time in your day to intentionally loaf and just not do anything, to let the mind rest, let your body rest. Sounds like I've adopted that pretty maybe too much, but that can include, like I said, folding laundry or doing the dishes, and just kind of keeping that social media and putting the phone down, letting your mind kind of wander, can also be a good release, I think, for anxiety too.
And the other thing that I want to add is I think we have to be aware of, since we are isolated, what we do choose to expose ourselves to. So if you're already a little bit struggling with feeling sad and lonely, be aware of what movie you're playing, be aware of what book you're reading, be aware of what music you're listening to. You want to be aware of what you're putting in and what plant that's going to water. So if you have a lot of anxiety, maybe you do want to listen to a little bit more mellow music. If you have a lot of depression, then you are going to want to find a movie that has a more positive message. This may sound silly, but one of the things that's been really helpful to me is comedians, watching a show on Netflix of a comedian, because it gets me focused on something other than the fact that I am alone and they are purposefully trying to make me laugh. And that's not a bad thing.
These are great tips, guys. Very fun.
And I think for parents, if you have kids, take the opportunity to let your kids teach you how to play. Mm-hmm. Let them instruct you on how they want to play together. Let them be the boss in that kind of situation. Give them a sense of control.
Nice. And I think when you were just saying about help your kids play, I think if we can reframe some of our situation, that there are opportunities in the midst of this present situation, I mean, when else do we have time like this with our families? We don't. Our society, we've kind of given up this time. So intentionally putting in, that work into our family and playing together. Yes.
I want to add this too, though. As a working mom who's still working from home and office and with 3 kids at home, I think that, we may expect ourselves, if we're not doing all of the things that we need to do to water our, to build our family relationships, that we're feeling guilty, that everyone else is doing it correctly. I was watching or listening to someone else, and they were talking about how their friend was so frustrated that, their daughter had their hour of TV time today, and she didn't know what to do with her now that the hour of TV time was done. And the friend said to her, "This is a pandemic. You are stuck at home. There is no hour of TV time at this point. Everything that you need to do right now to get your family through this, just do this. Don't feel guilt if you're not having these life-changing family moments. Your goal is to just get through this intact and focus on, however long it takes to get out of quarantine."
It's funny that you say that, because I think I had my mental health moment breakdown this Saturday. And it's interesting because if anyone knows me, I'm usually a pretty positive person. So I don't typically hit that melancholy times, but I did on Saturday. I just really was struggling with the whole day. And it was that very point you just mentioned, that I had all these preconceived thoughts in my head of how useful I should spend my time right now. And I literally had to come to the conclusion that I needed to let those go. And as soon as I did, I was fine by Sunday. But Saturday was a rough day because I was thinking all the should haves, must, all those things that I thought I needed to do. So I think that's very wise, us just coming to, this is an unprecedented time. And, there's no right way to get through this.
Just give ourselves a break.
Okay. Well, you guys have absolutely thrown out some wonderful coping mechanisms for us to navigate this. I want to next ask, what can we do if we know someone that's struggling? Maybe someone that might even have a past history with anxiety, depression, maybe might be a little bit more isolated. Do you have any thoughts?
First thought is to be proactive, and if you can, take the time to call somebody and just find out how they're doing to express genuine care. Okay. But if you are aware that somebody has a tendency to struggle, they might be somebody that you want to make a point to be intentional about calling and just checking in with them.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I grew up, I guess I consider myself pretty lucky. My group of friends have always been very open about talking about issues at home or just their own depression or their own struggles as they go through life. And we've always kept that an open conversation since high school, and here I am nearing 80. We still make that a pretty normal conversation for us. So I make it a joke. I call at least 2 of my buddies every day and just say, "This is a wellness check, see how you're doing." FaceTime that for about a half hour until we have nothing else to talk about. Or I'm tired. My one buddy puts his phone down and stares at the ceiling while we're talking. I said, "Well, I'd like to see your face, bud." But that's been a nice way to connect with people. FaceTime, Google Hangouts. We had one Google Hangout with 18 of my friends at one time, and it was a complete disaster. But we laughed and it was great, and we talked for about 2 hours as a group. Nice. And they gave me even a couple days after that. You're still like, that was pretty awesome. But I think, I do have a couple friends that I know struggle. And it's just exactly like you said, be proactive. Don't let the phone sit too long. Just give them a call and make sure they're doing okay.
Nice.
I think I've had people call me in those situations, and I know what that impact is. So don't underestimate what that phone call could be.
I think that's one of the beauties that you've seen in our community and in a state and a nation. People caring for other people. And I just think it's so important. And, I think we just need to be mindful about, making sure we're looking out and just being intentional and caring about people. So very neat.
And the only thing I would add, my daughter turned 8 on Saturday, and she had been planning for the past 6 months different versions of her birthday party, full of people and themes. And I mean, it changed, but she went all in with her planning, and then knowing that there was going to be no party. So I reached out. I just sent kind of a mass text to all of our friends and support system, and I asked. I'd seen a lot of people do the birthday parade. And so I had her outside on Saturday, and people were driving by, and they were either dropping it. So I went from thinking that this is probably trying to prevent her from feeling disappointed on her birthday to thinking this is going to be one of the best birthdays of her life.
Ones, yeah.
And there weren't tremendous. I don't mean to make it sound this way, but they were small, just tokens of love for her. And I thought how impactful that was, just to have people take 10 minutes out of their day. Some of them gave her a candy bar. Some of them gave her, a little activity pad. But it was something small that showed that they cared about her. So I guess my point in that is even if you're not a phone person, or even if you're not comfortable with FaceTime, just taking a little time, going to the store and finding something to drop off on someone's porch, not only does that feel good for you, the giver, but how awesome for the person to know that someone put that effort in.
Absolutely. Very neat. Okay, next question. If someone is feeling really overwhelmed at this point, that those techniques, tips that you've kind of thrown out there, music, exercise, drinking the cold water, still might not be enough. What should someone do, or what can someone do? I kind of want to just get to what resources, services do we have here in our county, and how do people access them?
They are certainly welcome to call and schedule an appointment. We have counselors that have available appointments to do the telehealth. And I would also encourage them to consider contacting their physician, or consider the need for medication if, what is going on is impacting sleep, impacting appetite, impacting thoughts that just aren't going away.
Okay. And you said thoughts that aren't going to go away. Let's just talk about suicide here. Have we seen an increase in that here in the county? What do we need to know if someone is feeling really desperate?
I can talk. You can go. I was looking up I didn't want to say the wrong numbers when I got to that part. When I was
Go ahead, Miles.
But at CMH, we have 24-hour crisis intervention services. And those are still operational. The doors are still open. So if you want to come in and meet with somebody face-to-face, we can still do that. We also have a 5-bed stabilization unit at our Dover location, and that's still operational as well. Obviously, with proper screening going on before people are admitted fully to go into that community back there. But I'm going to look up these phone numbers because I don't have them off the top of my head. So if you want to talk a little bit more.
So we were concerned at the beginning of April that we might be seeing an uptick in suicides in Tuscarawas County, at least, not necessarily in Carroll. There have not been any additional, that I'm aware of, suicides over the past 2 weeks, but we continue to pay really close attention to that. And when we saw that, we kind of rallied our troops and pulled together a plan about what we could do to provide some outreach for people that we know are at risk. We as a mental health system are continually trying to get the community to understand mental health is the same as physical health. Just as when you're developing something like strep throat, and in the beginning, if you just want to wait and ride it out and see if you can get through this, if it's going to get worse, and time goes by and days go by and the symptoms get worse, and you end up suffering, and recovery takes longer because you've delayed treatment. Mm-hmm. And it's the same type of thing with mental health. I just want to really encourage everyone to be aware of what we call your baseline in the mental health field, how you typically feel, either in the middle of the pandemic or prior to the pandemic. And when you see yourself starting to move away from that, if you're sleeping less or sleeping more, if you're more irritable, if your appetite's increasing or decreasing, those can all be symptoms that you're moving away of whatever your typical baseline is. And the sooner you can recognize that, and the sooner you can get into services, the less lengthy your services are going to tend to be.
Great. Miles, did you find those resources?
Yeah.
For us?
So we have 2 lines, one for Tuscarawas County and one for Carroll County. For Tuscarawas County, it's 330-343-1811. And that's our 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week number. for Tuscarawas County. For Carroll County, it's the same service, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That phone number is 330-627-5240.
Great. Yeah. And in addition to those, you can go on any website. You can go to the Tuscarawas, Tusk ADC. You can go to the ADAMHS board, CMH, PFCS. We have text for helplines, national
suicide prevention.
Yeah.
Those lines are open too.
And the state of Ohio also adopted a crisis text line because we know that the younger generation from high school to late 20s have tended to use the text line more. And that's a 24/7 as well, trained response. And for anyone that is interested in using that, just to get some support, that number is 741-741, and you text the number 4 HOPE, HOPE, 4 HOPE to 741-741.
Perfect. So you can go on any of the agency websites, the Tusk ADC as well, to find resources if anyone needs help. Real quick, you just brought up the texting and the young people. I just want to really quickly address this because I think today we've really been talking a lot about adults and kind of what we are experiencing. But our young people, this might look different, what they're going through. And I think sometimes as adults, we might forget or diminish some of the losses they might be experiencing, from proms to graduations to their high school senior pitching, year when they're trying to get into colleges and stuff like that. Anything we need to be mindful about our young people?
I think you really hit it. I think it is a significant amount of loss for the young people. So exploring what's going on with you and how the loss is impacting you is something that needs to happen a lot of times in counseling.
Okay. So being mindful that during this pandemic, we're all experiencing things we've not experienced before. And whether we've stopped and thought about it, losses have occurred, I would say for everybody. So being mindful that we might not be at our baseline because we're experiencing things that we've not navigated before. So if you're struggling, there's some natural coping stuff y'all threw out there today. And there's also a lot of avenues for help. And I've been around y'all enough to know treatment works. Recovery is possible. And that we have great providers here in our county, that agencies and persons that really care about our individuals and only want the best for our community and our community members. So I want to just say thank you guys today for coming, for speaking with us, for the work y'all do and that your colleagues do here in Tuscarawas County. I also want to say to our viewers, reach out if you need help, connect with others, serve others, be intentional about your connections. Because it is so important that not only are we caring for ourselves, that we give ourselves a break, drop some of those expectations, like that 1 hour of youth TV or screen time a day, just kind of drop some of that and just take care of ourselves and each other. So I thank you so much for the work and the resources and sharing this information today.
Thank you, Jodi, for having us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
Make sure you follow us on adctus.org or on whatever you go to grab your podcast. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Anti-Drug Coalition podcast, a member of the Get Level Podcast Network. For more information, visit getlevelpod.com or find us on Facebook. Download our podcast shows on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure you stay tuned for more great shows that are coming soon.